know that feeling, that tightness in your chest at 3 in the morning, when a deadline, a heartbreak, or a single regret swells until it fills the entire room, pressing against the walls, stealing the air, convincing you that this moment is everything. Feel its weight. Now, rise. Rise through the ceiling, past the rooftops, through the thin blue veil of the atmosphere, and keep going. Watch the cities shrink to circuits of light. Watch the continents curl into something a child could hold, and watch your entire world become nothing more than a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. What happens to your fear when the ground you stand on is just a tiny, fragile sapphire lost in a sea of infinite velvet? On that single grain of light, every emperor who ever conquered, every mother who ever sang a lullaby at midnight, every philosopher who ever wrestled with the meaning of it all, every broken heart and every act of breathtaking kindness, all of it unfolded on this one pixel drifting through the dark. Every war was fought over a fraction of that dot. Every border drawn on it would be invisible from here. When you hold that truth gently enough, something extraordinary happens. The walls your ego built around your suffering begin to thin and then dissolve altogether. But here is what so many miss. You are not a stranger gazing at the cosmos from the outside. You are the cosmos gazing inward. Every atom of iron threading through your blood right now was forged in the furnace of a dying star billions of years ago. That star collapsed so that one day you could breathe and wonder and feel. You are not in the universe. You are a way the universe found to know itself. And if that is true, then your smallness is not a punishment. It is the deepest kind of freedom. If your entire civilization is a whisper in a cathedral of silence that stretches for billions of light years, then your mistakes are not monuments. They are microscopic. They are forgiven by the sheer scale of existence before you even ask. You are free, not because your life doesn't matter, but because you no longer have to carry the impossible lie that it must matter more than everything else. So tonight, we are not simply looking at the stars. We are remembering that their rhythm is our rhythm, that the calcium in our bones and the oxygen in our lungs were scattered across space long before this world had a name. We are going to trade our loud, frantic worries for the quiet, eternal pulse of the galaxy that has been beating inside us all along. Close your eyes. Breathe. Let the weight of the room fall away. We are about to begin a cosmic zoom out, a journey from the noise in your mind to the silence between galaxies. Your world is small, but your soul is as vast as the space between the stars. Let's go home. Right now, wherever you are, I want you to notice the edges of your world. Maybe it is the four walls of a bedroom. Maybe it is the glow of a screen in a dark room. Maybe it is the sound of traffic outside your window, or the hum of a refrigerator down the hall. This is your universe in this moment. These few square meters of space, this small pocket of air, this tiny kingdom of the familiar. And somewhere inside this kingdom, there is a weight. You know what it is. You have been carrying it around like a stone in your coat pocket, reaching in to touch it every few minutes to make sure it is still there, still heavy, still real. Maybe it is something someone said to you that you cannot stop replaying. Maybe it is a bill you cannot pay, or a future you cannot see clearly, or a version of yourself you cannot forgive. Whatever it is, it fills this room. It presses against the ceiling. It sits on your chest, like gravity decided to double its hold on you and you alone. Stay with that feeling for just a moment. Do not push it away. Acknowledge it. It is real, and I am not here to tell you that it is not, but I am here to show you something that might change the way it feels. I am here to take you on a journey that only requires one thing from you: your willingness to rise. Imagine, right now, that you are lifting gently off the surface where you sit. Not fast, not with force, but the way a breath of warm air lifts a feather from a windowsill. You pass through the ceiling as though it were made of mist. You see the roof of your building, the patchwork of shingles or concrete, and already your room is just a small square in a grid of small squares. There is your street, the one you walk every day without thinking. There is the corner where you turn. There is the neighbor's door you have never knocked on. Already, the thing that weighed on you has no address that anyone could find from here. You keep rising. Your neighborhood becomes a texture, a pattern of rooftops and trees that looks less like the place where your life happens and more like a photograph someone might hang on a wall and call art. You can see the edges of your city now, the way it softens into suburbs and then fields or coast or desert. That argument you had last Tuesday, the one that made your pulse hammer and your jaw tighten, is somewhere down there, but from here, you could not point to it if you tried. It exists in a space so small that your finger would cover the entire block where it happened. Now, you are above the clouds. The world becomes geometry. Rivers are silver threads. Mountains are wrinkles in fabric. The ocean is not the terrifying, churning thing it is from a boat in a storm. It is a vast, quiet mirror, curving gently at its edges. You begin to see something that very few human beings in the entire history of our species have ever seen with their own eyes. You begin to see the curvature of the earth. This is the moment I want you to hold. This is where something shifts, because there is a name for what happens to the human mind at this altitude. Astronauts call it the overview effect. It was first described after the earliest space missions, when men and women who had spent their whole lives inside the drama of nations and borders and politics were suddenly confronted with a planet that had none. They looked down and saw no lines between countries. They saw no walls, no checkpoints, no divisions between here and there, between us and them. What they saw was a single luminous sphere of blue and white, floating in an ocean of absolute black, and every single one of them reported the same thing, a profound, overwhelming, almost heartbreaking sense of unity. Several of them wept, not from fear, not from loneliness, but from a sudden understanding that everything they had ever worried about, every conflict they had ever known, was contained on that one fragile object, and that the object itself was unspeakably beautiful and unspeakably small. One astronaut said it restructured his entire understanding of what mattered. Another described feeling as though the boundaries of the self dissolved, and for a few moments there was no difference between the person looking and the planet being looked at. This is not poetry. This is neuroscience. Studies on the overview effect show that it physically changes the brain's activity patterns, quieting the regions responsible for self-referential thought, the parts of the mind that spend all day narrating your problems, your failures, your fears, and activating regions associated with awe, interconnection, and what researchers call the small self. The small self is not a diminished self. It is a liberated one. It is the version of you that stops believing it must carry the weight of the world, because it has finally seen the world and the world is just a blue marble turning slowly in the dark. You are still rising. The atmosphere, which felt infinite when you stood beneath it and looked up at the sky, reveals itself now for what it truly is, a paper-thin shell. If the Earth were the size of a classroom globe, the atmosphere would be thinner than a coat of varnish. That is it. That is all that stands between every living thing and the vacuum of space. Every breath you have ever taken came from that impossibly thin layer. Every sunset you have ever watched was just light bending through that narrow ribbon of gas. Every storm that ever terrified you was a tiny disturbance in a film so delicate it barely registers on the scale of the planet itself, and beyond it, silence. Not the silence of an empty room, but a silence so total, so absolute, that the concept of sound becomes meaningless. This is the exosphere, the place where the last few molecules of Earth's air drift into the void. And then there is nothing. No wind, no echo, no vibration, just the deep, immeasurable quiet of space. In that quiet, something happens to the weight you were carrying, not because the weight was imaginary, but because the frame has changed. Imagine a painting of a storm. When the canvas is the size of a wall, the storm feels violent, overwhelming, consuming. Now imagine that same painting shrunk to the size of a postage stamp and placed in the center of a canvas the size of a field. The storm is still there. It is still real, but it is no longer everything. It is a detail. It is a small, fierce, beautiful detail in something so much larger that the larger thing does not even notice the storm is happening. This is what perspective does. It does not erase your pain. It does not tell you that your struggles are unreal or that your feelings do not matter. It does something far more generous than that. It gives your pain a context so vast that the pain finally has room to breathe. And when pain has room to breathe, it loosens its grip. Think about the light arriving at your eyes tonight when you look at the stars, the photons landing on your retina from even the nearest stars beyond our sun have been traveling for years. The light from Sirius left its surface roughly 8.5 years ago. The light from Polaris, the North Star, began its journey over 400 years ago, when Shakespeare was still alive. And the faintest smudges of light visible on the clearest nights are galaxies whose light has been traveling for millions of years, crossing the void long before human beings existed, long before there were eyes on this planet to receive it. You are not seeing the sky as it is. You are seeing the sky as it was, a museum of ancient light, and you are standing at the end of a journey that began before your species learned to walk upright. So I have to ask you something, and I want you to sit with this question instead of answering it quickly. If your entire life is happening on a grain of sand in a cosmic desert, why are you carrying the weight of the entire desert on your shoulders? Why does one bad month feel like a catastrophe when it is unfolding on a speck of rock orbiting an ordinary star in the arm of an ordinary galaxy, one of 2 trillion galaxies that we know of, in a universe that may itself be just one bubble in an infinite foam of universes? This is not a reason to feel hopeless. This is the opposite. This is permission. Permission to set the weight down. Permission to stop believing that your mistakes are monuments visible from space. They are not visible from the next town over. They are not visible from the top of the atmosphere. They are certainly not visible from the nearest star. And here is the paradox that I want you to carry with you instead of the stone you have been carrying. By acknowledging your smallness, you do not become smaller, you become larger than your problems. Because your problems require you to believe that they are the size of the world. That is how they hold power over you. They need you locked inside the room, staring at the walls, convinced that the walls are the edges of reality. The moment you rise above the roof, the walls lose their authority. The moment you see the curvature of the earth, your problems do not grow to match the new frame. They stay exactly where they were, on one street, in one room, in one moment that is already passing. This is what the astronauts discovered. Not that life on Earth is meaningless, but that it is precious, specifically because it is small. A diamond is not valuable because it is the size of a mountain. It is valuable because it is rare and contained and formed under immense pressure into something that holds light in a way nothing else can. Your life is the same. It is not grand on the scale of the cosmos, and that is exactly what makes it shine. So as you hover here, in the silence above the atmosphere, with the whole earth curving below you like a blue lamp in an endless dark room, let yourself feel the strange relief of the small self. Let the deadlines shrink. Let the arguments grow quiet. Let the version of you that was convinced the sky was falling realize that the sky is not above you anymore. You are above it. And from here, everything looks different. Everything looks like it might actually be all right. Now, before we return, I want to plant one more thought. As you float here, looking at that pale blue world below, consider this. You are not simply a creature looking at the universe from the outside. You did not arrive here as a visitor from somewhere else. Every atom in your body was assembled from materials that were already here, already ancient, already part of the story, long before you entered it. The calcium that makes your bones rigid enough to stand, the iron that colors your blood red enough to carry oxygen to your brain so that you can have this very thought. None of it was made on Earth. None of it was made in this solar system. It was made in the heart of a star that died before our sun was born. You are, in the most literal and unsentimental and scientifically verified sense, not merely standing on the universe, you are made of it. And that changes everything. But that is a story for the next step of our journey. For now, stay here. Stay in the quiet. Let the silence do its work. And when you are ready, we will go deeper, not outward this time, but inward, into the ancient furnace that built every atom of who you are. In the beginning, and I mean the very beginning, there was almost nothing. Not the kind of nothing you imagine when you picture an empty room, because an empty room is still filled with air, with light, with the quiet hum of a world outside. This was a nothing so complete that the word itself barely applies. And then, in a single moment that lasted less than a trillionth of a second, everything that would ever exist announced itself. An unimaginable bloom of energy, hotter and denser than anything that has existed since, expanding in all directions at once, not into space, because there was no space yet, but as space, creating the very fabric of distance and time as it moved. And when this primordial fire began to cool, the first elements condensed out of the chaos, like frost forming on a winter window. Hydrogen, helium, that was nearly all. The entire observable universe, everything you have ever seen or touched or loved, started as a vast, featureless cloud, of these two simplest atoms. No carbon, no oxygen, no iron, no gold. Nothing that you would recognize as the raw material of a life, a planet, a heartbeat. Just hydrogen and helium drifting in the dark, waiting for gravity to do what gravity does. And what gravity does is gather, slowly, across millions of years. These atoms began to drift toward one another, pulled by an attraction so faint that on the scale of individual particles, it is the weakest force in nature. But gravity is patient beyond all reckoning. It does not tire, it does not forget. And given enough time, even the weakest pull in the universe can draw a cloud of gas into a sphere so dense, so hot at its core, that something miraculous happens. The hydrogen atoms, crushed together under pressures that no earthly metaphor can honestly capture, begin to fuse. Their nuclei merge, releasing energy, and a star is born. This is not poetry. This is physics. The first stars ignited roughly 1 to 200 million years after the beginning of everything, and they were monsters. Many of them were hundreds of times more massive than our sun, burning with a ferocity that made them blaze blue-white across the young universe, living fast and dying in ways that would reshape the cosmos forever. Because here is what a star actually is, beneath the romance we have draped over it. A star is a forge. It is a furnace of nuclear fusion where simple elements are crushed into heavier ones, step by step, layer by layer, like a blacksmith working metal, but on a scale that dwarfs every human endeavor combined. In the core of a massive star, hydrogen fuses into helium. When the hydrogen runs low, the core contracts, heats further, and helium fuses into carbon. Then carbon fuses into neon, neon into oxygen, oxygen into silicon, and silicon, finally, into iron. This process, this stellar nucleosynthesis, is where the periodic table was written, not in a laboratory, not in a textbook, in the heart of a dying star, under conditions so extreme that matter itself is rearranged at the most fundamental level. But iron is where the star meets its limit. Every fusion reaction before iron releases energy, which is what keeps the star alive, what holds it up against the crushing weight of its own gravity. But fusing iron does not release energy, it absorbs it. And so, when a massive star builds an iron core, it has written its own ending. In less than a quarter of a second, the core collapses. The outer layers, no longer supported, come crashing inward at a significant fraction of the speed of light. And then they bounce. The result is a supernova, an explosion so violent that for a few weeks, a single dying star can outshine an entire galaxy of hundreds of billions of stars. And in that explosion, two extraordinary things happen. First, the energy is so immense that elements even heavier than iron are forged in the blast itself. Gold, platinum, uranium, elements that not even the star's long life could produce. Second, and this is the part I need you to feel in your body, not just understand in your mind, all of those elements, the carbon, the oxygen, the nitrogen, the calcium, the iron, everything that star spent millions of years crafting in its core is scattered, flung outward into space at thousands of kilometers per second, seeding the surrounding void with the raw ingredients of everything that will ever live. You need to understand what this means for you, personally, specifically, physically. The calcium that right now is keeping your bones solid enough to hold you upright was assembled inside a star that no longer exists. The iron that at this very moment is binding oxygen to your red blood cells, carrying it to your brain so that you can hear these words and make meaning from them, that iron was forged in a stellar core under pressures that would crush our entire planet into a space smaller than a city. The carbon that forms the backbone of your DNA, the molecule that contains every instruction your body has ever followed to build itself into you, that carbon was fused from helium in a process that took millions of years inside a furnace that burned at tens of millions of degrees. You are not made of Earth. You are made of stars that gave themselves up so that something new could exist. And you are not made of just one star. The atoms in your left hand may have originated in a completely different stellar furnace than the atoms in your right hand. The oxygen you are breathing in this moment may have traveled through 3 or 4 stellar life cycles before it found its way into the atmosphere of this small planet. You are a collection of cosmic fragments, gathered from across light years of space and billions of years of time, assembled by gravity and chemistry and chance into this precise, unrepeatable arrangement that calls itself by your name. Think about that. Think about what it means for loneliness. We walk around with this quiet, persistent ache, this sense that we are separate, isolated, cut off from the world and from each other, trapped inside the walls of our own skin. But the walls of your skin are made of atoms that were once inside a star, and before that, they were part of a gas cloud that stretched across light years, and before that, they were born in the first moments of the universe itself. You have never been separate from anything. You cannot be. Separation is an illusion that only works if you do not look too closely at what you are actually made of. How can you feel lonely when you carry the light of 1,000 suns in your very bones? How can you feel abandoned by the universe when the universe spent billions of years building the exact atoms it needed to become you? There is an old idea, and it is not a sentimental one, that you are the universe experiencing itself. This sounds like something someone might say at the end of a long night to sound profound, but it is the most literal truth available to us. You are not a creature that was placed into the cosmos from somewhere else. You are what happens when the cosmos arranges hydrogen atoms in just the right way and waits long enough. You are 13.8 billion years old. The face you see in the mirror is new, yes, but the materials it is made of are ancient beyond any human concept of ancient. You are wearing a new expression for this century, looking out through new eyes for this lifetime. But the substance of you, the actual physical stuff, has been on a journey since the beginning of time. Think of yourself as an old book whose letters have been rearranged. The letters themselves, the carbon, the oxygen, the hydrogen, the nitrogen, they have been part of other words before. They have spelled out stars and nebulae and oceans and forests and creatures that vanished millions of years before your species arose. And one day, when this particular arrangement comes to its natural end, those letters will be rearranged again, taken up by the soil, by the water, by the air, and given to new words, new stories, new arrangements that will be no less miraculous than this one. Nothing about you will be lost. It will only be redistributed. This is the recycling of existence, and it has been happening since the first supernova scattered its riches into the void. Consider the iron in your blood one more time. Before it was yours, it may have been part of a meteorite that drifted through space for hundreds of millions of years. Before that, it was part of a stellar core, Before that, it was lighter elements being fused under unimaginable pressure. And before that, it was hydrogen, born in the first few minutes after the universe began. That single iron atom in one of your red blood cells has a resume that stretches across nearly the entire history of existence. It has been part of things you will never know, in places you will never see, and it will go on to be part of things that have not yet been imagined. You are its custodian for this brief, beautiful moment. You are the chapter it is passing through on a journey that has no beginning it can remember and no end it can foresee. This is your cosmic heritage. Not a metaphor, not a comforting fiction, a fact so well established by astrophysics and nuclear chemistry that it is taught in introductory courses at every university on the planet. You are supernova remnants. You are the ash of stellar fires that burned out long before this solar system condensed from their remains. Every element in your body heavier than hydrogen and helium was manufactured inside a star. And the only reason it is inside you today is because that star was generous enough to die. So, when the world makes you feel small, when you feel like a temporary accident on an insignificant rock, remember what that rock is made of. Remember what you are made of. You are the cosmos in concentrated form. You are what happens when star stuff gathers itself together and develops the astonishing ability to contemplate its own origins. You are not merely alive. You are the universe's way of knowing that it is alive. Carry that with you now as we move forward. Because as magnificent as this inheritance is, as ancient and powerful as the atoms in your body have proven themselves to be, they exist against a backdrop that we have not yet truly reckoned with. Between the stars that forged you, between the galaxies that scattered your elements across the void, there is something else, something vast, something that most of us spend our entire lives avoiding. There is silence. An immense, bottomless, stretching silence that fills the space between everything that has ever burned. And it is in that silence, not in the fire, that the deepest kind of peace has been waiting for you all along. But that is where we go next. For now, stay here. Stay with the warmth of knowing what you are. Feel the ancient heat that still lives in your blood. And when you are ready, we will step together into the quiet. We have traveled so far already. We have risen above the atmosphere and watched our world become a blue ember in the dark. We have traced the iron in our blood back to the cores of stars that died before our sun was born. And now, I want to take you somewhere that most people instinctively turn away from. I want to take you into the space between. Not between walls, not between words, between stars, between galaxies. Into the vast, unbroken, incomprehensible silence that makes up almost everything that exists. Because here is a fact that rarely settles into the body the way it should. The universe is almost entirely empty. If you could somehow remove all the matter in the observable universe, every star, every planet, every grain of dust, every atom of gas drifting through every nebula, the amount of space you would free up would be almost exactly the same as the amount of space that was already there. Matter is the exception. Substance is the rarity. The universe is not a collection of objects with gaps between them. It is a vast, borderless ocean of emptiness with the tiniest, most occasional flecks of something floating in it. You live on one of those flecks, and right now, I want you to step off the fleck and into the ocean. Imagine yourself drifting, not falling, because there is no down here, not floating, because floating implies something to float upon, just existing, suspended in a darkness so complete that the word darkness does not do it justice. On Earth, even the darkest night has texture. There is the faint glow of the atmosphere scattering distant light, the dim suggestion of clouds, the barely perceptible warmth of a horizon where a city might be. Here, there is none of that. You are between galaxies, in a stretch of void so vast that the nearest object of any kind, the nearest atom, might be millions of light years away in any direction. And in this place, there is something you have never truly experienced, no matter how quiet a room you have sat in, no matter how remote a mountaintop you have climbed. There is absolute silence. Not the silence of a library, where you can still hear the blood in your own ears and the faint electrical hum of lights above you. Not the silence of a winter field, where the snow absorbs sound but the wind still breathes and your coat still rustles. This is the silence of the vacuum, and it is absolute because of physics, not atmosphere. Sound is a wave. It is a vibration that moves through a medium, through air, through water, through the solid ground beneath your feet. One molecule bumps into the next, which bumps into the next, and this chain of tiny collisions carries the vibration forward until it reaches your eardrum and your brain interprets it as a voice, as music, as thunder, as the creak of a door in the middle of the night. But in the vacuum of space, there are no molecules. There is nothing to bump into, nothing. A supernova could detonate close enough to bathe you in light, and you would see the most violent explosion in the known universe unfold in perfect, absolute, unbroken quiet. Sound cannot exist here. It has no medium through which to travel. And so the silence is not an absence of noise. It is a place where noise is physically impossible. It is silence as a law of nature, not as a momentary pause. Sit with that for a moment. Let it settle, because I think we are afraid of silence in ways we do not fully understand. We fill our lives with sound, the way we fill empty rooms with furniture, not because we need it all, but because the emptiness unnerves us. We sleep with podcasts playing. We eat with the television on. We walk with earbuds in, not always because we want to hear something specific, but because we do not want to hear nothing. The quiet feels like a void, and the void feels like a threat. It feels like the beginning of something we cannot control, a space where our thoughts might grow too loud, where the things we have been avoiding might finally catch up to us. But consider this. Why do we fear the silence of the room when it is the same silence that holds the stars in place? The void between the galaxies is not hostile. It is not malicious. It is not waiting to consume you. It is simply space. It is room. It is the canvas upon which every star that has ever burned has painted its light. Without this emptiness, there would be no distance. And without distance, there would be no journey, no separation between here and there, no possibility of movement or change, or the slow, beautiful unfolding of a life across time. The void is not the enemy of existence. It is the condition that makes existence possible. Think about music. Not a specific song, but the nature of music itself. A melody is not made of notes alone. It is made of the spaces between the notes. If every note were played simultaneously, with no gaps, no rests, no silence between one tone and the next, you would not have music. You would have noise. A single, undifferentiated wall of sound that carries no meaning, no emotion, no shape. It is the silence between the notes that gives each note its identity, its weight, its power to move you. The pause before a resolution is what makes the resolution land. The breath between phrases is what makes the phrase feel human. Music is not sound decorated with silence. Music is silence shaped by sound, and your life is the same. The moments of stillness, the pauses, the spaces where nothing seems to be happening, these are not interruptions in your life. They are the structure of it. They are what give the loud moments meaning. Or think of a page. The words you are hearing right now, if I were to write them down, would be black marks on a white surface. And the words only make sense because the white space surrounds them, separates them, gives them room to be distinct. If the entire page were covered in ink, edge to edge, with no space between the letters, you would have nothing. Not nothing in the sense of blankness, but nothing in the sense of meaninglessness. The emptiness of the page is not a failure of the page. It is the intelligence of the page. It is what allows meaning to emerge. The void of space operates on the same principle, on a scale that staggers comprehension. It is the white page on which the universe has written itself. And here is something that will quietly rearrange the way you think about emptiness. Even this void, this seemingly absolute nothing between the stars, is not truly empty. Physicists discovered something extraordinary when they looked closely at the vacuum of space. At the smallest scales, at the quantum level, what appears to be emptiness is actually a seething, shimmering ocean of potential energy. Virtual particles flicker in and out of existence constantly, appearing for the briefest instants and then vanishing again, so quickly that they cannot be directly observed, but their effects can be measured. The vacuum exerts a pressure. It has a temperature, however faint. It contains energy. The void is not a dead zone. It is more like a sleeping ocean, still on the surface, but alive with currents deep below. The quantum vacuum is, in a very real sense, the most creative space in the universe, because it is the space from which particles can emerge, from which fields can fluctuate, from which the potential for everything that exists is quietly, perpetually held. You carry a version of this inside you, beneath the noise of your thoughts, beneath the endless narration of worries and plans and replays and rehearsals that your mind produces from the moment you wake until the moment you fall into restless sleep. There is a deeper layer. There is a stillness that you did not create and that you cannot destroy. Your thoughts are not the ocean. Your thoughts are the waves. They are the surface activity, the ripples kicked up by the wind of experience and memory and fear. But beneath the waves, the ocean itself does not move. It does not worry. It does not chase. It simply holds. It holds the waves the way space holds the stars, without effort, without opinion, without the need for the waves to stop in order for the ocean to be at peace. The ocean is already at peace. It has always been at peace. And you have access to that depth anytime you stop insisting that you are the waves. This is the practice hidden in the silence of the cosmos. You do not need to fight your thoughts. You do not need to empty your mind, as though your mind were a room full of clutter that must be cleared before you are allowed to rest. You simply need to notice that beneath the clutter, the room has a floor, and the floor has always been there, and it is solid, and it is quiet, and it will hold you whether the room above it is chaotic or still. Let yourself drift here a moment longer. Feel the absence of friction. There is no wind against your skin. There is no gravity pulling you toward anything. There is no sound asking for your attention. There is only this immense, patient, unhurried stillness, stretching in every direction for distances that the human mind was never designed to comprehend, but that the human heart, for some reason, seems to recognize, as if some part of you remembers that you came from this, as if the silence of the void is not foreign to you at all, but is in fact the oldest thing you know. You are resting now in the architecture of nothingness, and it is holding you perfectly, the same way it holds the galaxies, the same way it holds the light that has been traveling since the beginning of time. The void does not strain under the weight of the cosmos. It simply allows, and you can do the same. You can allow your thoughts without becoming them. You can allow your pain without letting it define the shape of your life. You can rest in the space between your heartbeats and find that the space is not empty at all. It is full of the same quiet potential that fills the space between the stars. But here is what makes this silence even more astonishing. And it is where we are headed next. In all of this vastness, in all of this emptiness, in a universe that is almost entirely void and vacuum and silence, something happened that should not have happened. On one tiny rock, orbiting one ordinary star, in one arm of one galaxy among trillions, conditions aligned with a precision so extraordinary that it defies every intuition we have about chance. The temperature was right, the distance was right, the chemistry was right, and out of the silence, out of the void, out of the same emptiness we have been floating in, life emerged, not because the universe demanded it, but because, against all probability, the universe allowed it. The question of why it allowed it and what that allowance means for you is where we turn next. But for now, stay in the quiet. There is no hurry. The stars will wait. They have been waiting for billions of years. They can wait a few more breaths for you. We have floated in the silence. We have felt the ancient heat of dead stars still glowing in our blood. We have watched our world shrink to a point of light against an infinite dark canvas. And now I want to bring you back to this planet, back to this air, back to this single, specific moment in which you are breathing. Because something happened here that, the more you understand it, the more it begins to feel less like an accident and more like the universe holding its breath for billions of years and then, against every conceivable odd, exhaling you. Let me start with a number. Our planet orbits the Sun at an average distance of roughly 150 million kilometers. This distance has a name in astronomy. It is called 1 astronomical unit, and it sounds like a dry measurement, the kind of figure you memorize for an exam and then forget. But this distance is not arbitrary. It is within a remarkably narrow margin, the exact distance required for water to exist in liquid form on a planet's surface. Move the Earth just a few % closer to the Sun, and the oceans begin to boil. The water vapor rises into the atmosphere, traps more heat, and the planet enters a runaway greenhouse effect. The surface temperature climbs until the rocks themselves begin to glow. This is not speculation. This is what happened to Venus, a planet almost the same size as Earth, just a little closer to the Sun. And now its surface temperature is hot enough to melt lead, and its atmosphere is a crushing blanket of carbon dioxide and sulfuric acid. Move the Earth a few percent farther from the Sun, and the opposite occurs. The water freezes. The ice reflects sunlight back into space, cooling the planet further, freezing more water, reflecting more light, in a feedback loop that locks the world in a permanent winter. This is what happened to Mars, a planet just a little farther out, now a frozen desert with an atmosphere so thin that if you stood on its surface without a suit, your blood would begin to boil, even as your skin froze. Between the furnace and the freezer, there is a narrow band. Astronomers call it the habitable zone. It has another name, less formal, but more honest. They call it the Goldilocks zone. Not too hot, not too cold, just right. And Earth sits in it, as though it were placed there by a hand that understood exactly what it was doing. But the distance from the Sun is only the first lock in a door that has thousands of locks, every single one of which had to click open for you to be here tonight, listening to these words. Consider gravity, not as a concept, but as a specific value. The gravitational constant, the number that determines how strongly matter attracts other matter, is fixed at an extraordinarily precise value. If this constant were even fractionally stronger, stars would burn through their fuel in millions of years instead of billions, and there would not be enough time for planets to form, for chemistry to complexify, for anything resembling life to emerge. If it were fractionally weaker, matter would never have clumped together at all. No stars, no planets, no galaxies, just a thin, cooling mist of hydrogen drifting forever in the dark. The margin between a universe that can produce life and a universe that cannot is so impossibly thin that physicists sometimes compare it to adjusting a dial with billions of possible settings and landing on the one setting, the only setting that allows complexity to exist. And gravity is just one dial, the strength of the electromagnetic force which holds atoms together, which allows molecules to form, which makes chemistry possible, is tuned to a similarly knife-edge precision. If it were slightly stronger, atoms would cling to each other so tightly that the fluid chemistry of life could never occur. If it were slightly weaker, atoms would not bond at all, and the universe would be a soup of isolated particles with no structure, no molecules, no possibility of a DNA strand or a cell membrane or a thought. The strong nuclear force, which holds the nuclei of atoms together, sits at a value that allows stars to fuse hydrogen into helium and helium into carbon. Adjust it by a tiny fraction in either direction, and stellar nucleosynthesis fails. No carbon, no oxygen, no life-building elements scattered by supernovae, no you. The expansion rate of the universe itself, the speed at which space has been stretching since the first moment of the Big Bang, is calibrated to an almost absurd degree of precision. If the initial expansion had been even slightly faster, matter would have spread too thin for gravity to pull it into stars and galaxies. The universe would be an empty, structureless void, expanding forever into cold nothingness. If it had been even slightly slower, gravity would have pulled everything back together almost immediately, collapsing the universe into a single point before anything had time to form. The fact that the expansion rate landed in the impossibly narrow window that allows both structure and longevity, both galaxies and time, enough for those galaxies to produce planets that produce life. This is not something that science can currently explain with certainty. It can only describe it, measure it, and stand in front of it with something very close to reverence. This is what physicists refer to when they discuss the fine-tuning problem, sometimes framed as the anthropic principle. Not a religious argument, not a proof of design, but an honest acknowledgement that the values governing this universe appear to be set with a precision that defies casual explanation. Whether this precision implies a designer, or is the result of our universe being one of countless universes with randomly varying constants, where we naturally find ourselves in the one that supports observers, or is the product of some deeper law we have not yet discovered, no one knows. What everyone agrees on is that the precision is real, and it is staggering. But the cosmic fine-tuning is only half the story, because even in a universe with the right constants, life needed a home, and that home needed its own extraordinary set of protections. Look at Jupiter, that enormous swirling gas giant, more massive than all the other planets in our solar system combined, is not just a spectacular neighbor, it is a guardian. Its immense gravitational field acts as a cosmic vacuum cleaner, attracting and absorbing or deflecting asteroids and comets that would otherwise rain down on the inner solar system with devastating frequency. The rate of catastrophic impacts on Earth, the kind that can wipe out entire branches of life in a single afternoon, is estimated to be thousands of times lower than it would be without Jupiter standing sentinel in the outer solar system. Life on Earth has had the time it needed to evolve from single cells to conscious minds, in large part because a giant planet happened to form in the right orbit to shield this smaller world from the worst of the cosmic bombardment. And then there is the Moon. Our Moon is unusually large relative to the planet it orbits, and its presence is not decorative. The Moon stabilizes the tilt of Earth's rotational axis, keeping it within a narrow range that allows for moderate, predictable seasons. Without the Moon, Earth's axial tilt would wander chaotically over millions of years, swinging from nearly zero, which would eliminate seasons altogether and create permanent climate extremes between the equator and the poles, to extreme angles that would plunge entire hemispheres into months of total darkness, followed by months of relentless, scorching sunlight. The stable, gentle tilt we enjoy, the one that gives us spring and autumn and the slow, familiar turning of the year, is a gift of the Moon's gravitational anchor. Remove the Moon, and the predictability that life depends on to adapt and evolve begins to unravel. Consider our atmosphere, a thin, layered envelope of nitrogen and oxygen, held in place by a magnetic field generated by the churning molten iron core of the planet, a core that has remained active for over 4 billion years. Without this magnetic field, the solar wind, a constant stream of charged particles blasting outward from the sun, would strip away the atmosphere molecule by molecule, the way it stripped away the atmosphere of Mars when Mars's core cooled and its magnetic field died. Our atmosphere is not just the air we breathe. It is a shield maintained by a dynamo buried thousands of kilometers beneath our feet, and that dynamo has been running without interruption since before the first cell divided. The atmospheric pressure at sea level, the weight of all that air pressing down on you right now, is tuned to a value that allows water to exist as a liquid at the temperatures we experience. Lower the pressure, and water sublimates directly from ice to vapor, skipping the liquid phase entirely. Raise it beyond certain thresholds, and the chemistry of biology begins to behave differently in ways that would preclude life as we know it. The pressure you feel right now, the pressure you never think about because it is so perfectly calibrated to your existence that your body does not even register it, is another lock that clicked open. Now hold all of this together in your mind. The distance from the sun, the gravitational constant, the electromagnetic force, the strong nuclear force, the expansion rate of the universe, the presence of Jupiter, the size and orbit of the moon, the active core of the planet, the magnetic field, the composition and pressure of the atmosphere, each one a condition that had to be met. Each one a thread in a web so delicate that cutting any single strand would collapse the whole structure. And yet, here you are, breathing, listening, thinking, feeling, in a universe that is mostly frozen vacuum or roaring plasma, on a planet where the temperature allows water to flow and the air allows lungs to fill and the light allows eyes to see, in this specific moment that required 13.8 billion years of preparation, in a universe that is mostly frozen or burning, how did it happen that this specific moment, this specific air, and this specific heartbeat were granted to you? I do not have the answer. No one does. But I know what the question feels like when you let it truly land. It feels like gratitude, not the polite, surface gratitude of thanking someone for holding a door. A deeper gratitude, a gratitude that starts in the stomach and rises slowly until it sits behind the eyes and makes the world look different. The gratitude of existence itself, the recognition that being alive is not a given. It is the most improbable event in the history of time, repeated in your body roughly 37 trillion times over, once for each cell that is cooperating right now to keep you here. You are the jackpot. Not once, but continuously. In every second of your existence, the cosmic lottery is paying out in your favor. Every breath is a win. Every heartbeat is the universe choosing for one more moment to keep this astonishing arrangement intact. Imagine a master watchmaker's gallery, stretching farther than the eye can see, filled with billions of gears, each one a different size, each one turning at a different speed, and all of them meshing perfectly, silently, without a single tooth out of place, so that at the far end of the gallery, a single flower can bloom. You are that flower. The gears have been turning since the beginning of time, and they are turning still. And for this brief, luminous window, they are turning for you. So rest in that, not with arrogance, but with wonder. Not with the pride of someone who believes they deserve this, but with the quiet awe of someone who has just realized the scale of the gift they have been given without ever asking for it. But even this gift, this staggering, improbable, perfectly calibrated miracle of existence, unfolds within a frame, and that frame is time. Time on a scale so vast that human history, all of it, every empire and every love letter and every war and every lullaby, fits into a sliver so thin it almost does not register. And understanding that sliver, understanding just how brief and recent and precious your moment is against the backdrop of cosmic time, that is where we go next. Stay with the wonder. Let the gratitude settle into your bones, and when you are ready, we will open the clock of the universe and find out what time it really is. Let me tell you about a clock. Not the kind on your wall, not the kind on your phone that counts the minutes until your next meeting, but a clock so vast that its face stretches across the entire history of everything that has ever happened. Imagine, for a moment, that you could take the full lifespan of the universe, all 13.8 billion years of it, and compress it into a single calendar year, January 1st through December 31st, 12 months, 365 days. This is the cosmic calendar, and it is the most humbling thing you will ever set your mind against. On January 1st, at midnight, the universe begins. The Big Bang. Everything that will ever exist, every particle of matter, every photon of light, every force and field and constant, emerges from a point smaller than an atom and begins expanding into the void. By mid-January, the first galaxies are beginning to take shape, vast spiraling clouds of gas collapsing under their own gravity, igniting the first generation of stars. Our own galaxy, the Milky Way, forms sometime around March. Think about that. It takes the universe until March just to build the neighborhood we live in, and the stars within it burn and die and scatter their elements, and new stars form from the debris. And this cycle of stellar birth and death continues for months and months on the cosmic calendar, forging the elements that will one day become planets, oceans, and the bones of living things. Our sun does not ignite until September, the first day of September, roughly. For 8 months on this calendar, our solar system does not exist. There is no Earth, there is no moon. There is no Jupiter standing guard. For 2/3 of the year, the very ground you are sitting on right now is nothing but a possibility, scattered atoms drifting in a cloud of gas and dust that has not yet begun to coalesce. Earth forms in the first or second week of September, a molten ball of rock being pummeled by debris, its surface glowing red with heat, utterly hostile to anything we would recognize as life. And yet, astonishingly, by the end of September or early October, the first microscopic life appears. Simple, single-celled organisms, barely more than chemistry with ambition, clinging to the edges of a world that is still cooling, still being reshaped by volcanic fury and asteroid impacts. Life begins early. Life is stubborn, but life stays simple for a very, very long time. For the entire months of October, November, and most of December, life on Earth is almost exclusively microscopic. Single cells, bacteria, archaea, organisms so small that 1 billion of them could fit in a drop of water. They are transforming the planet, slowly filling the atmosphere with oxygen, reshaping the chemistry of the oceans, laying the groundwork for everything that will follow. But if you were watching the cosmic calendar unfold in real time, you would see nothing happening on the surface of the Earth that looked like progress. No plants, no animals, no eyes, no movement. Just a quiet planet with a thin film of microbial life, patiently, imperceptibly, changing the world from the inside out. For over 2 months on this calendar, which corresponds to roughly 2 billion years of real time, almost nothing visible changes. The first complex multicellular life does not appear until mid-December. The Cambrian explosion, that sudden, extraordinary burst of animal diversity that fills the oceans with creatures of every shape imaginable, happens around December 19th or 20th. Dinosaurs arrive on Christmas Day. Let that land for a moment. The dinosaurs, those colossal creatures that dominated the Earth for over 160 million years, creatures so successful that they ruled the planet for a span of time that dwarfs the entire existence of our species by a factor of almost 1,000. The dinosaurs arrive on December 25th and are gone by December 30th. 160 million years of dominance compressed into 5 days on the cosmic calendar, wiped out by an asteroid on the morning of the 30th and replaced, gradually, by the small, warm-blooded mammals that had been hiding in their shadow. And now we come to the part that should make the hair on your arms stand up. The entire history of the human species, everything we have ever done, every civilization we have ever built, every word we have ever spoken, every war we have ever fought, every song we have ever sung, every child we have ever held, all of it happens on December 31st, the last day of the year. And not even the whole day. Anatomically modern humans appear at roughly 10:30 in the evening on December 31st. The agricultural revolution, the moment when we stopped wandering and started building, when we planted the first seeds and laid the first foundations of what would become cities, that happens at 11:59 and 46 seconds. 14 seconds before midnight. The Roman Empire, the Renaissance, the Industrial Revolution, both world wars, the invention of the telephone, the airplane, the computer, the internet, the phone in your pocket, your birth, your first memory, your first heartbreak, this very moment in which you are listening to these words, all of it happens in the final second of the final minute of the final hour of the final day of the cosmic year. 1 second. That is what we are. Not a chapter, not a page, not even a full sentence in the story of the universe. We are a single syllable, spoken quickly, at the very end of a book so long that no human mind can hold its full length. And here is where I want to ask you something that I hope you will carry with you long after these words have ended. If the stars have watched empires rise and fall in the time it takes you to breathe, does the mistake you made yesterday still hold the same weight? Does the embarrassment from last week, the failure from last year, the regret you have been nursing like a wound that you will not allow to heal, does it still feel like the defining event of your existence, when your entire existence is a flash of light in a darkness that has lasted for 13.8 billion years? I am not asking you to feel insignificant. I am asking you to feel free, because there is a profound liberation hidden inside the brevity of your life, and most of us never find it because we are too busy pretending that our time here is longer than it is. We treat our years as though they are a vast warehouse with room for everything, room for grudges and regrets and anxieties, and endless postponement of the things that actually matter. But your years are not a warehouse. They are a lightning flash in a dark night. And yes, the flash is brief, unimaginably brief, but in that flash, everything is illuminated. In that momentary blaze of light, you can see the entire landscape, every detail sharp, every color vivid, every shadow defined. The brevity is not the enemy of meaning. The brevity is what creates the meaning. A sunset that lasted forever would not be beautiful. It would be wallpaper. It is the fact that the light is leaving, that the colors are shifting, that the moment is passing even as you watch it, that makes you catch your breath and think, this is precious. Your life operates on the same principle. It is precious not in spite of its shortness, but because of it. The shortness is a filter. It burns away everything that does not matter. If you truly understood, not as an idea but as a feeling in your chest, that your time here is measured in a cosmic fraction so small that no calculator can display it, you would not spend another moment in the grip of an anxiety that will be forgotten before the Earth completes another orbit around the Sun. You would not waste another evening replaying a conversation that hurt you, because the conversation and the hurt and the evening itself are all part of a flash that the universe will not even remember. This is not nihilism. This is the opposite. This is the recognition that because your moment is so brief, every second of it is sacred. Not sacred in a religious sense, unless that framework serves you, but sacred in the sense that it is rare beyond all reckoning. The universe spent 13.8 billion years doing other things before you arrived. It will spend trillions of years doing other things after you are gone. And in between, there is this heartbeat, this breath, this moment of awareness in which the cosmos, through you, is able to know that it exists. You are not a permanent resident of the universe. You are a witness, a momentary creature with a unique, extraordinary, almost paradoxical ability to perceive the eternal. The stars cannot marvel at their own light. The galaxies cannot appreciate their own spiral arms. The void cannot contemplate its own silence. But you can. You, in your single cosmic second, can look up at the night sky and feel something that the sky itself is not capable of feeling. And that makes your second not small. It makes your second the most remarkable thing happening in the universe right now. Our brains were not built to comprehend deep time. We evolved to understand seasons, to track the movement of the sun across the sky, to remember the faces of a few hundred people and the layout of a few hundred square kilometers of landscape. 1 billion years is not a number our neurons can feel. It is an abstraction. We can write it down, we can say it, but we cannot hold it in our minds the way we hold the memory of a Tuesday afternoon. And so we do something understandable but dangerous. We mistake our 80 or 90 years for a long time. We treat our lifespan as though it were the natural unit of measurement for existence. We plan as though we have endless tomorrows, and we grieve as though our losses will last forever. But when you set your life against the cosmic calendar, you see that neither is true. You do not have endless tomorrows, and your losses, no matter how real and how painful, are etched in a medium that the universe is already in the process of recycling. The mountains you see outside your window are being worn down, grain, by wind and rain. The continents beneath them are drifting, slowly, relentlessly, rearranging the face of the planet. The sun itself is aging, brightening gradually, and in roughly 1 billion years, it will have grown hot enough to evaporate the oceans. In 5 billion years, it will swell into a red giant and swallow the inner planets entirely. The Earth, the whole Earth, the stage on which every human story has ever been performed, will be absorbed back into the star that gave it life. This is not a tragedy. This is a rhythm. This is the same rhythm that has been playing since January 1st on the cosmic calendar. The rhythm of things forming and dissolving and forming again. And your life is one small, perfect beat in that rhythm. So what do you do with your 1 second? You do not waste it wishing it were longer. You do not spend it paralyzed by the fear that it is ending. You inhabit it. You fill it with the only things that have ever mattered at any scale of time: connection, presence, the warmth of being near another consciousness that is also flickering briefly in the dark. You look at the people around you and you understand that they too are lightning flashes, and that the fact you are illuminating the same darkness at the same moment is a coincidence so improbable that it borders on the miraculous. And as you settle into this understanding, as the weight of your temporary anxieties begins to thin against the vastness of deep time, something else begins to stir. A question. If everything is so brief, if everything is passing, if even the stars and galaxies have expiration dates written into their physics, then what holds it all together? What connects your 1 second to the billions of years that came before it and the trillions that will come after? The answer, it turns out, is woven into the fabric of reality at a level so deep that it makes the cosmic calendar look like a surface detail. Because beneath time, beneath space, beneath the apparent separateness of every object and every moment, there is a web, and every atom of your being is tangled in it. But that web, that extraordinary, invisible architecture of connection, is where we go next. Stay in your second, feel its warmth, and when you are ready, we will look beneath it and discover that nothing in this universe has ever truly been alone. There is a moment in every life when the feeling of separation becomes almost unbearable. You are lying awake at 3 in the morning, or standing in a crowded room where no one seems to see you, or watching someone you love walk away, and the walls of your skin feel like the walls of a prison. You are in here, everything else is out there, and the distance between the two feels infinite, feels permanent, feels like the fundamental condition of being alive. I am alone. I am contained. I am a single point of consciousness sealed inside a body that no one else can enter. This is the story the ego tells, and it is, from the perspective of physics, almost entirely untrue. Let me take you somewhere very small. Smaller than a cell, smaller than a molecule, smaller than an atom. Down into the subatomic world where the rules you learned about reality stop applying and something far stranger, far more beautiful takes their place. In this world, there is a phenomenon that Albert Einstein found so disturbing, he called it spooky action at a distance. It is called quantum entanglement, and it is one of the most rigorously tested and consistently confirmed facts in all of modern physics. Here is what happens. When two particles interact under certain conditions, they become entangled. This means that from that moment forward, the quantum state of one particle is linked to the quantum state of the other. Not linked the way two phones are linked by a signal passing between them. Linked in a way that has no signal, no delay, no transmission. When you measure one particle and find it in a particular state, the other particle, no matter how far away it is instantaneously found in the corresponding state. Not after a beat, not after a signal has had time to cross the distance between them at the speed of light, instantaneously, as though the distance between them does not exist. As though, at some level deeper than space itself, the two particles are not two particles at all, but one thing wearing two masks. This has been tested across kilometers. It has been confirmed in laboratories around the world. It is not a theory waiting for proof. It is a fact waiting for us to understand what it means. And one of the things it might mean is this. In the first fraction of a second after the Big Bang, all the matter and energy in the observable universe was compressed into a space smaller than an atom. everything that would become every galaxy, every star, every planet, every ocean, every cell, every thought you have ever had was touching everything else, was, in fact, not merely touching but occupying the same point. If entanglement arises from interaction, and if everything in the universe was once in the most intimate interaction possible, then there is a sense, a real, physical, not merely poetic sense, in which everything in the universe is still connected. Not connected by wires or waves or any medium that crosses the space between things. Connected in a way that makes the space between things irrelevant. Connected at a level beneath space, beneath time, beneath the apparent separateness that our senses report. Now I want you to hold that thought and bring it back up to the scale of your daily life. You think of yourself as a separate thing, a body with edges, a mind with walls. You have a name, a history, a location in space. You are here, and everything else is not here. This is the story your nervous system tells you because it is useful. It helps you navigate the world. It helps you find food and avoid danger and recognize faces. The boundary of your skin is a biological convenience, a tool for survival. But it is not a physical reality in the way you think it is. At the atomic level, you are not solid. You are mostly empty space. The atoms that make up your body are not touching each other the way bricks touch in a wall. They are held in relative position by electromagnetic forces, hovering in a cloud of probability, and the space between the nucleus of an atom and its electron cloud is proportionally as vast as the space between the sun and the edge of the solar system. If you could remove all the empty space from all the atoms in your body, the actual matter that remains would be so small you would need a microscope to find it. You are not a solid object moving through a solid world. You are a pattern, a shimmering, dynamic, constantly shifting pattern of energy and information, no more separate from the patterns around you than a wave is separate from the water. And this is the metaphor I want you to sit with. A wave rises from the surface of the ocean. It has a shape, it has a direction, it has a beginning and, eventually, an end. If the wave could think, it might believe it was a separate entity, born at some specific point, traveling across the water under its own power, dying when it reaches the shore. But the wave was never separate from the ocean. It was always the ocean, expressing itself temporarily in a particular form. The water that makes up the wave was ocean before the wave arose, and it will be ocean after the wave subsides. The wave is not a thing that happens to the ocean. The wave is a thing the ocean does. And you are not a thing that happens to the universe. You are a thing the universe does. You are the cosmos, gathered temporarily into a specific shape, a shape that can breathe and wonder and feel heartbreak and look up at the stars. But you are not separate from the cosmos, any more than the wave is separate from the sea. The boundary between you and everything else is a useful illusion, maintained by a nervous system that evolved to help you survive, not to show you the truth about what you are. Consider what happens when you look at a star on a clear night. Light leaves the surface of that star, sometimes hundreds or thousands of years before this moment, and crosses the void of space as a stream of photons. Those photons enter your eye, pass through the lens, strike the retina, and are absorbed by the cells there, which convert the light into electrical signals that travel along the optic nerve into the visual cortex of your brain, where they become the experience of seeing a point of light in the dark sky. In this process, the photon ceases to exist as a separate entity. It is absorbed. Its energy becomes part of your neural network, part of the electrochemical cascade that constitutes your conscious experience. You and the star are not merely looking at each other across a distance. You are engaging in a physical exchange. The star has given something of itself to you, and that something is now woven into the pattern of your brain, shaping the very thoughts you are having about it. Where does the star end and you begin? The photon that was the star is now the thought that is you. The boundary has dissolved, not as a metaphor, but as a fact of physics. This dissolution is happening constantly, in every direction, at every scale. The air you inhale was exhaled by trees that drew their carbon from the atmosphere and their water from soil that was fed by rain that evaporated from oceans that were stirred by the gravitational pull of the moon. Every breath you take is a transaction with the entire planet. The food you eat was assembled by plants using sunlight, which is energy produced by nuclear fusion in the core of the sun, which means that every calorie in your body is stored starlight. You are not fueled by the things you consume. You are fueled by the sun, processed through layers of biological and chemical intermediaries. Your energy is solar energy. Your matter is stellar matter. Your consciousness is the universe becoming aware of itself through a temporary arrangement of borrowed atoms. So I ask you now, and I want you to let this question open something inside you rather than rushing to answer it. If every atom in your body is dancing in resonance with the rest of the cosmos, where do you actually end and the universe begin? Where is the line? Is it your skin? We have seen that your skin is mostly empty space, permeable to light and heat and gas, shedding millions of cells a day that become dust, that becomes soil, that becomes food, that becomes someone else. Is it your mind? Your mind is shaped by every conversation you have ever had, every book you have ever read, every face you have ever seen, each of which was a physical interaction, an exchange of photons and sound waves and chemical signals. Your mind is not contained in your skull. Your mind is a process that extends into every interaction you have ever had with the world. The self you think of as separate is more like a whirlpool in a river. It has a recognizable shape. It persists for a time. But it is made entirely of water that is flowing through it. Water that was river before it became whirlpool and will be river again after the whirlpool subsides. This is what the mystics of every tradition have been pointing toward for thousands of years, and what physics, by a completely different path, has begun to confirm. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. The universe did not produce you the way a factory produces a product, something separate from the machinery that made it. The universe is producing you right now, in this moment, the way a tree produces leaves. You are an expression of the whole, not a fragment that broke off from it. And the loneliness you feel, the ache of separation that visits you in your most vulnerable hours, is not evidence that you are alone. It is evidence that you have temporarily forgotten what you are. You have mistaken the wave for something other than the ocean. You have mistaken the mask for the face beneath it, because that is what the ego is, a mask, a beautiful, intricate, necessary mask that the universe wears in order to look at itself from a particular angle. Your personality, your memories, your name, your preferences, your fears. These are not you in the deepest sense. They are the costume that allows the cosmos to have a specific experience. And every other person you see is another costume, another angle, another way the same underlying reality is exploring what it feels like to exist. When you look into another person's eyes, you are not looking at a stranger. You are looking at another version of the same thing you are, the universe, wearing a different face, carrying different memories, but made of the same ancient atoms, entangled with the same web of connection, arising from the same source and returning to the same destination. Feel that for a moment. Feel the weaving. Feel the threads that connect you to the air you breathe, to the light that enters your eyes, to the ground that holds you, to the people who have shaped you, to the star that forged your iron, to the void that gave the star room to burn. You are not a lonely point of consciousness, trapped in a bag of skin. You are a knot in an infinite net, and every thread of that net vibrates when you do. And it is here, in this understanding, wrapped in this web of belonging so total that the concept of isolation becomes almost absurd, that a new question begins to form. If we are all this connected, if the boundaries between us are constructs rather than realities, if the person across the street and the person across the ocean are made of the same stuff, entangled in the same web, expressions of the same underlying unity, then what does that mean for the way we treat each other? What does that mean for the borders we draw, the wars we fight, the grievances we clutch? What does the human story look like when you view it not from inside the drama, but from the vantage point of a single pale blue dot floating in an endless dark? That is where we are going next, out of the quantum realm and back to the surface of our small, fragile, achingly beautiful world, to see if the perspective we have gathered can teach us something about how to live together on it. Stay in the web, feel its resonance, and when you are ready, we will rise once more and look down at this planet with new eyes. On February 14th, 1990, a spacecraft called Voyager 1, which had been traveling away from Earth for over 12 years, was about to cross the outer boundary of our solar system. It was nearly 6 billion kilometers from home, farther than any human-made object had ever been. Its primary mission was complete. Its cameras were no longer needed. And yet, at the request of one person, the spacecraft was instructed to turn around, to rotate its camera back toward the place it had come from, to take one last photograph. The person who made that request understood something that most of us spend our entire lives avoiding. He understood that sometimes the most important thing you can do is look back at where you came from and see it for what it truly is. The photograph that came back was not dramatic. It was not beautiful in the way we expect photographs of Earth to be beautiful. There were no swirling blue oceans, no white cloud patterns, no green continents. There was only a field of darkness, interrupted by scattered bands of light caused by the sun's reflection inside the camera lens. And there, suspended in one of those bands, was a point of light so small that it occupied less than a single pixel. That was Earth. That was everything. Every mountain you have ever seen, every ocean you have ever crossed, every city you have ever walked through, every forest, every desert, every island, every inch of ground that any human being has ever called home was contained in that pale, barely visible speck. I want you to sit with that image, not as an idea, but as a feeling. Let it press against the part of you that still believes your corner of the world is the center of something. Because on that pixel, on that fraction of a dot, every person who has ever lived was born, struggled, loved, wept, raged, and died. Every pharaoh who believed he was a god, every emperor who thought his borders defined the edge of civilization, every general who marched armies across continents, convinced that the land he was seizing mattered on some ultimate scale, every dictator who demanded absolute obedience from millions, who built statues of himself that towered over city squares, who rewrote history books to ensure that his name would be remembered forever. All of them lived and died on that mote of dust. And from 6 billion kilometers away, the mote itself is barely visible. The statues, the armies, the borders, the empires, they are not even a smudge on a smudge. Think about the rivers of blood that have been spilled across the centuries by generals and kings and revolutionaries and zealots, so that in glory and triumph they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Not masters of the dot, masters of a fraction of it. A patch of land so small that from the distance of our own outer solar system, it cannot be distinguished from the patch of land next to it, or the ocean beside that, or the desert beyond. The borders they fought for, the lines they drew on maps with such conviction that they were willing to send thousands of young people to die defending them, those borders are not visible from orbit. They are not real in any physical sense. They are agreements, fictions, stories we tell each other with such intensity that we forget they are stories. No one has ever seen a border from space. No astronaut has ever looked down and seen a line between one country and the next. What they see is a single world, without seams, without divisions, turning slowly in the light. And yet we kill each other over these imaginary lines. We build walls along them. We teach our children that the people on the other side are different, that their lives are worth less, that their suffering matters less, that the accident of their birth on one side of an invisible line rather than the other makes them strangers or threats or enemies. We do this on a planet so small that every human conflict in history has been a family argument, not metaphorically, genetically. Every human being on Earth is related, every single one. The most distant genetic relatives among living humans are still close enough that, on the scale of life itself, we are practically identical. We share more than 99% of our DNA with each other. The differences we use to justify our hatreds, our wars, our walls, the differences of skin color, of language, of culture, of belief, these are variations so minor that they would be imperceptible to any observer who was not already looking for reasons to divide. If our world is so small and fragile, why do we spend so much of our brief time making it even harder for one another? This is not a rhetorical question. I want you to ask it of yourself with real honesty. Think about the conflict you are carrying right now, the person you are angry at, the grudge you are nursing, the argument you are replaying in your head, refining your points, sharpening your counterattacks, building your case for why you were right and they were wrong. Now place that argument on the surface of a pixel. Place it on a pale blue dot suspended in a sunbeam 6 billion kilometers away. Can you find it? Can you point to the exact spot where your rightness and their wrongness are located? Can you identify, from that distance, which side of the argument deserves the moral victory? You cannot, and neither can anyone else. Because from the perspective that actually matches the scale of reality, The argument does not exist, not because it does not feel real to you. It does. Not because your feelings are invalid, they are not, but because the frame in which the argument feels like the most important thing in the world is a frame so small, so local, so zoomed in, that it has lost all contact with the larger truth of what is actually happening. What is actually happening is the two temporary arrangements of ancient atoms on a tiny rock in the arm of an ordinary galaxy are spending a portion of their cosmically insignificant lifespans convinced that the other arrangement is wrong, and both of them will be gone in an almost immeasurably short time, and the rock will keep spinning, and the galaxy will keep turning, and the universe will not remember the argument any more than the ocean remembers a single ripple. This is not a call to passivity. This is not a suggestion that nothing matters and you should stop caring. It is the opposite. It is a call to care about what actually deserves your care. It is a call to spend your one cosmic second not in the service of your ego's need to be right, but in the service of something that might actually echo beyond your own vanishing. Kindness echoes, not in the way empires echo, through force and monuments and the rewriting of history. Kindness echoes the way ripples echo across water, gently, silently, reaching shores that the stone that caused them will never see. When you are kind to someone, you change the chemical composition of their brain. You alter the trajectory of their day, which alters the trajectory of their interactions with others, which alters trajectories you will never witness, in rooms you will never enter, among people you will never meet. This is not a small thing. This is the only form of immortality that is actually available to you. Not the immortality of statues and conquests, which crumble and are forgotten, but the immortality of effect, of resonance, of the quiet, invisible way that one act of decency can propagate through a web of interconnected lives long after the person who performed it has returned their atoms to the soil. This is the ethic of the pale blue dot, not an ethic handed down from above, not an ethic enforced by authority or tradition, but an ethic that arises naturally, inevitably, from seeing clearly what we are and where we are. We are fragile creatures on a fragile world in a universe that is not paying attention to us. There is no evidence, in all the vastness we have explored, of anyone else out there who is coming to help. No signal from the stars, no rescue mission being planned in a neighboring galaxy, no cosmic authority that will intervene if we destroy ourselves. We are, as far as we know, alone. Not alone in the lonely sense, but alone in the responsible sense. We are all we have. This small, spinning, impossibly precious world is the only home our species has ever known, and the people on it, all of them, every single one, regardless of where they were born, or what they believe, or what language they speak, or what flag they were taught to salute, are the only family we will ever have. The ethics of the void are simple, and they are devastating in their simplicity. Be kind, because there is no one else to be kind for you. Protect this world, because there is no other world to go to. Forgive, because your grievance occupies less space in the universe than the period at the end of this sentence occupies on the surface of the sun. Love the people around you with whatever time you have, because the time is shorter than you think, and the people are more like you than your ego will ever admit. This is cosmic humility, not the humility of feeling worthless, but the humility of finally seeing accurately. Seeing that your life is brief, your world is small, your species is young, and your conflicts are microscopic, and seeing that none of this diminishes you, it clarifies you. It strips away the noise and the posturing and the desperate need to be important and leaves behind something clean and honest and deeply human. It leaves behind the recognition that on this pale blue dot, we are all in the same situation, all made of the same ancient stuff, all riding the same small rock through the same vast dark, all equally temporary, all equally miraculous. So carry this with you, not as a burden, but as a lens. The next time your ego swells, the next time your anger convinces you that it is righteous, the next time you are certain that the person in front of you is your enemy, pull back. Remember the photograph. Remember the pixel. Remember the rivers of blood spilled over fractions of a dot. And ask yourself whether this moment, this conflict, this burning need to be right, is really how you want to spend your 1 second in the cosmic year. We have traveled very far together. We have seen the universe from its largest scale to its smallest, from the silence of the void to the resonance of entangled particles, from the birth of stars to the brevity of human history. And now, it is time to come home. Not home to a planet, not home to a country or a city or a street. Home to the small, quiet space inside you where all of this perspective can settle and become something you carry in your chest. Home to the room where you are sitting, or lying, or walking. Home to the breath you are taking right now. Home to the self that has been listening and wondering, and perhaps beginning to feel something shift. That return, that final inward journey, is where we go next. And it may be the most important step of all. We have been so far. We have traveled distances that the mind can barely hold, past the edges of the atmosphere, past the orbits of planets, past the light of neighboring stars, out into the spaces between galaxies, where silence is so complete it becomes a kind of presence. We have watched our world shrink to a point of light, and then to less than a point. We have traced the iron in our blood back to the furnaces of dying stars. We have stood at the edge of deep time and seen our entire civilization flicker into existence in the final second of a cosmic year. We have dissolved the boundaries between ourselves and the universe and discovered that there were never any real boundaries to begin with. And now it is time to come home. Not home to a planet, though we are returning there. Not home to a place on a map, though your body is in one. Home to yourself. Home to the small, warm, breathing center of your own life, where the journey we have taken does not end but settles, the way snow settles on still ground, gently, silently, becoming part of the landscape rather than something separate falling upon it. Feel yourself descending now, not falling, drifting, the way a leaf released from a great height does not plummet, but turns and sways and takes its time, as though the air itself is cradling it, lowering it with care. You are passing back through the darkness, and the first thing you notice is a faint blue glow at the edge of your vision. The atmosphere, that impossibly thin shell of air that holds everything you have ever known. You are entering it now, and as you do, something changes. The silence of space, which was absolute, begins to soften into something else. Not sound, not yet, but the possibility of sound. The potential for vibration. The promise that molecules are gathering around you again, that the void is giving way to substance, that you are returning to a world where things can be heard and felt and touched. And then warmth. After the cold of the void, after the absolute zero of intergalactic space, there is warmth. The warmth of an atmosphere heated by a star. The warmth of a planet that has been catching sunlight for 4.5 billion years and holding it close. You feel it on your skin the way you feel the first breath of spring after a long winter. Not just as a temperature, but as a welcome. The earth is warm, and it is warm for you. You descend through clouds. You feel the moisture in them, the weight of water suspended in air. Water that has been cycling through this planet's systems for eons, evaporating from oceans, falling as rain, seeping through soil, rising through the roots of trees, breathed out through leaves, rising again. The water in these clouds is ancient. Some of the molecules passing across your skin right now have been part of rivers that no longer exist, oceans that evaporated and reformed, glaciers that advanced and retreated across continents that have since drifted to different positions on the globe. You are descending through history. You are being bathed in time. Below the clouds, you see the lights, the small, scattered, golden lights of human habitation, towns and cities glowing faintly against the dark surface of the earth. And from this height, they look like embers in a fire that is slowly dying or slowly being born. You cannot tell which, and it does not matter. What matters is that they are there. What matters is that in each of those tiny points of light, someone is awake, or dreaming, or holding someone, or letting someone go. The whole tender, complicated, heartbreaking, magnificent project of being human is unfolding down there on a scale so small that the nearest star would not notice it, and yet so real, so achingly real, that it fills you with something you did not expect to feel after seeing the vastness. It fills you with tenderness. You are closer now. You can see the shape of your own landscape, the rooftops, the streets, the familiar geometry of the place where your life happens. It looks different from above. It looks smaller, yes, but also more precious. The way anything looks more precious when you have been away from it long enough to realize that you could have lost it, that it was never guaranteed, that every moment you have spent in it has been a gift you did not earn and could not have demanded. And now you are here, back in your room, back in the specific, particular, unrepeatable place where your body is resting. Feel the surface beneath you, the mattress, the pillow, the sheets, the slight compression of the cushion under your weight. This is gravity, the same force that holds galaxies together, that pulls stars into being, that bends the fabric of space-time around every object with mass, is right now holding you gently against the surface of the Earth. There is no difference between the gravity that organizes the cosmos and the gravity that is pressing your shoulders into your bed. They are the same force, operating under the same laws, expressed at different scales. The universe that spins galaxies is the same universe that is cradling you right now. Feel your heartbeat. You do not have to look for it. It is there, as it has been since before you were born. Since a tiny cluster of cells in the early weeks of your development began to pulse with an electrical rhythm that has not stopped since. That rhythm is not separate from the rhythms of the cosmos. The electrical impulse that triggers each heartbeat obeys the same electromagnetic laws that govern the light of stars. The atoms in your heart, The calcium and potassium ions that flow in and out of your cardiac cells to create each contraction were forged in the same stellar processes we traced earlier. Your heart is a star's legacy, beating in your chest. The cosmos did not make you and then leave. The cosmos is beating in you right now. It is firing your neurons right now. It is breathing through you right now. Every law of physics that governs the motion of planets and the expansion of the universe is currently, at this very second, managing the rhythm of your breath, the electrical cascade of your thoughts, the slow wave of relaxation spreading through your muscles as you settle deeper into stillness. This is what I mean by cosmic reciprocity. You are not a spectator of the universe. You are not a visitor. You are the universe, doing something very specific in this particular place and time. You are the universe being human. You are the cosmos experiencing what it feels like to have a body that gets tired, a mind that gets anxious, a heart that gets broken, and a consciousness that can, after a long journey through the dark, come home to itself and find that the peace it was seeking in the vastness was always here, folded into the simple act of breathing, waiting in the quiet space between one heartbeat and the next. The traveler who has seen the wonders of the world, the mountains and the oceans and the ancient cities and the star-filled skies of remote deserts, that traveler eventually lies down in their own bed, and in the moment their head touches the pillow, they realize something that they could not have understood before they left. The bed was always enough. Not because the journey did not matter. The journey mattered immensely. It expanded them, changed them, showed them things they needed to see. But what the journey gave them, in the end, was not a new place to rest. It gave them new eyes with which to see the place they already had. And the place they already had, the small room, the familiar shadows, the sound of their own breathing in the quiet, was always a miracle. They just could not see it until they had gone far enough away to come back. You have gone far enough. You have seen the edge of the observable universe and the interior of a dying star. You have watched your world become a pixel and your species become a fraction of a second. You have dissolved the walls of your skin and found the quantum web that connects you to everything that has ever existed. And now you are here, in a room, in a body, breathing air that has been breathed by billions of beings before you, warmed by a star that has been shining for nearly 5 billion years, held in place by the same gravity that holds the moon in orbit. And you are whole. Not because you have achieved something or solved something or fixed something. You are whole because you always were. You are whole because wholeness is not something you build. It is something you notice when the noise gets quiet enough. So let the noise get quiet now. Let the deadlines and the arguments and the regrets and the fears settle like dust in a room where the door has finally been closed and the air has finally gone still. They are not gone. They will be there in the morning, but tonight, they do not define you. Tonight, you are not your problems. You are not your failures. You are not the story your anxiety has been telling you on repeat for weeks or months or years. Tonight, you are what you have always been, beneath all of that. You are the universe in a form that can feel the softness of a blanket. You are 13.8 billion years of cosmic evolution lying quietly in the dark. And that is enough. Your worries are clouds. They are real. They have shape and weight and moisture. but they are passing. They have always been passing. Behind them, the sky has never moved. Behind them, the stars have never stopped shining. And you, the you beneath the thoughts, the you that has been listening to these words not just with your ears but with something deeper, something that recognized the truth of what was being said before your mind could catch up, that you is the sky, not the clouds. The sky. You are safe, not because nothing bad will ever happen, but because you are made of the same substance that has survived every catastrophe the universe has ever produced. You are made of atoms that have passed through the cores of stars and the explosions of supernovae and the formation of planets and the extinction of species, and they are still here. They are still here, and they are holding you together tonight with the same quiet persistence they have shown for billions of years. You are whole, not because all the pieces of your life are in place, but because you were never broken. You were always the ocean, even when you thought you were just a wave. You were always the sky, even when you could only see the clouds. You are part of the eternal light, the same light that left the first stars and is still traveling through space tonight. The same light that crosses the void and touches the earth and enters the eyes of every living thing that has ever looked up. That light is in you. It has always been in you. And when you close your eyes, it does not go out. It turns inward and it waits. You are home.